The Kony API contains a number of application interfaces that enables communication between the external systems and the mobile device. In this tutorial, we'll focus on the Kony Network API. The Kony Network API is used when a web service isn't available or it's just the best way to connect to an external data source via HTTP. The Network API supports many functions, such as HTTP and/or HTTPS request to any resource on the network, and it fetches the response. OpenAPI is used to initialize the HTTP request object with request method, GET or POST, and the URL. The Send API initiates the request, and the Abort API is called when you want to cancel the network operation. Now let's talk about how our Network API sample app was built. The sample app Network API has PIPL.com as backend data source. It contains 4 forms. The first form is FRM API key. The UI design is created by dragging and dropping widgets onto the palette area. Each widget must have a unique ID, and skins are applied to a widget using the skin property in the Properties panel. To set the text and the labels, go to the Text API key Textbox 2 widget, and that's where you input your API key. If you don't have one, don't worry, it's not a problem. We can help you get one. The INK No API Key Link widget has an on-click event that's tied to it that shows a pop-up form. It's Pop-up API Key Info. The pop-up form gives you directions on how to get an API key. The pop-up UI is created by dragging and dropping widgets onto the pop-up. On the pop-up form, button BTN Proceed to Get Key is used to navigate to the PIPL.com site to register. Now in the event editor, our first action sequence is to invoke the function URL API key. The window.open API is used to open the PIPL.com URL in the device's native browser. After getting the API key, we close the pop-up form. Using the on-click event for button BTN Cont to APP, we call the function Setting API Key using Event Editor. The function Setting API Key function validates the key, sets key to global variable, GAPI key, and then navigates to FRM Home. The FRM Home form is used to display details about the app's functionality. The on-click event of the button BTN Continue is used to navigate to form FRM Async data. FRM Async data form is used to enter the required data to invoke the HTTP request call to PIPL.com. Now the text boxes TextLN name and TextFN name are used to enter the user first name and last name, and those are the input parameters for the PIPL API. The on-click of button BTN Submit, well, we call that a function on-click submit, where the code to call request, fetch response, and parse response resides. The function on-click submit can be found in the async service.js, and it's located under modules in the application panel. In this function, we create the HTTP request object HTTP client 1. The request method is set to GET. The first and last names are user inputs from the text boxes in the FRM Async data form. So then we validate that the first name and last name variable are not empty strings. Below is the URL for PIPL.com that we're going to use to pass in the input params and retrieve our data. Did you get all that? Good. Now, as we now have the first and last name entered by user and API key, and that's stored as a global variable, we now initialize the GET HTTP request by using the Kony API open HTTP client1.open. The request method in our case is GET and has already been set by setting var request method equals constants.http_method_get. Then we initiate the HTTP request by calling the send API HTTP client1.send. The callback function onReadyStateChange is called based on the change in ready status of the HTTP request object. If the ready state of the HTTP request object is equal to done, the response is fetched and validated based on the status code returned. This validation is done in the function HTTP response code validate, for which the response fetched passes as an argument. In this function, we validate the response based on the HTTP status code returned from the result object. If HTTP status code is 200, then we call function handleResponse, in which the required data is parsed from response, fetched, and displayed to the user in a segment in the form FRM async small MGS. FRM async small MGS form is used to show the parsed data from the response to the user. As we're using a PeopleSearch URL, the data fetched is the search results from the PIPL.com, which are in multiple records. So, in order to display this data, we use segment segsmall. Now, from the response, we get the complete details of the person, like name, address, photo, education, city, towns, friend list, etc. But in our app, we only show the image, location, and name. Hence, in this segment, we place the image IMG ASY SML and labels LB/LP address and LB/LP name widgets inside container widgets HBox and VBox. To assign the data to the segment, we need data in the array. As we parse the data from the response based on the @records count param value, we set the required data to the array data ARR. The key name of the data values set into the array must match with the label or image names of the segment, segsmall. As we get the required data from the response, we assign the data array to the segment using setData method. If the value of @records count param returned from the response is 0, we show the alert to the user saying no records found for the search values entered by the user. Let's build and test this and see how it works. For this, we build it for Android Emulator to check the functionality. So go to the Applications panel, right-click on the application, and then select Build, Clean and Build. Select Android Native Channel. Click on Build. After the build is completed, you'll see a green tick mark against the T3 under Android in the Emulators tab. Double-click on it and start the Android emulator. Once the Android emulator starts, you can see the Network API screen when the app launches. Enter the API key and click Continue to App. If you don't have the key, click on the link Do Not Have API Key and that'll get you one. If the API key is valid, then the home screen is shown where the app overview is shown in brief. Click the Continue button to navigate to the FRM async data form. Enter first and last name to fetch the results. Now note, before you proceed, make sure that you are connected to a network. Then enter the first and last name and click Submit to see the Network API in action.